welcome back to the channel. We're going to be talking about this knife right here. It is an engineer's knife. Not going to talk a whole lot about the history of engineer knives in general. I'm going to do a separate video on that. This is a Camillus. We're going to talk about Camillus and their part in making this knife, and specifically talk about this knife a little bit. And so if you'd like to hear more about that, a little bit of the history of Camillus's involvement with these types of knives, go ahead and check out the video. Hey, welcome back to the fortified castle. In the background, two really cool World War II aircraft. And that's because we have a World War II knife here. This is an engineer's knife. Some people call these scout knives. Some people call them utility knives. The United States military called them engineer knife, and that's why we have that designation. And so this is made by Camillus. Let me show you that right there. Okay, can you see that? Whoa, there we go. And that is actually a 4-line. The let's see, the USA is kind of buried on there. You can just see the top of it. See it right there, just the top of the A and the S. Let's see. Yeah, you see a little bit better there. So it is a 4-line Camillus, which was typical in the war. But they also, some of the 3-liners did make it into these knives before the war ended. So let's just talk about the knife. Oh, before I do that, I have to give you a warning. The Surgeon General has determined that this show is addictive and that you may suffer side effects watching this show of compulsive needs and addictive behavior to buy knives. So just wanted to put that out there for you. There is help with the knife Anonymous. As the name claims, it's anonymous. Nobody will know you go. If you have a problem, you can't control your buying of knives by watching these shows. Go ahead and look up Knife Anonymous. Good program. Anyhow, I haven't done that because I don't care. I just love buying knives, and I keep buying them and buying them and buying them and buying them. All right, so this is a 3 5/8 inch engineer's knife. Now, the Armory specification for this knife, they called it a knife pocket engineer 4-blade with clevis. We would call that a bail. It should have a bail on it. This one does not. Almost all of them do. And at one point it did. Somebody has hammered down the pins on this from where the bail was. The Navy also issued these, and it was called the Navy 4-blade utility jackknife. And again, it required a bail. I believe that the Navy required a bail on it too. The specifications are the Army Spec 17-170, if you want to look it up. And the Navy model was Navy Spec 41-J-4. And so these knives were pretty standard. A lot of different companies made these knives, like Camillus, Ulster, Powell made some of these knives. Imperial and Western even made some of these knives, so you can see a few Westerns out there too. And these were equal end, basically set on a cattle knife frame, is what they basically were. And I'm not going to get a lot into the pattern because I'm going to do a separate video on these engineer utility scout knives and where they came from, the history on them and that kind of thing. So I just don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. You can see it's got a bow tie or hot dog USA shield. Actually, most of these knives made for the military did not have shields. The specification didn't call for it. And so, sometimes the companies just put shields on them. If you could get one with a shield that has, this is not United States of America, it's United States Army. There's United States Marine Corps. There's MD Navy. I think it's MD-Navy. I'll have to check on that. I actually have one of those. So there's a few different abbreviations for these knives. They almost all have bone. That was the specification. Beautiful bone there. It was wartime, so they were steel liners because they needed, there was a moratorium on the use of brass because they needed brass for shells, stuff like that. Look at that, man, that is good looking. Ooh, ooh, doggy. Let's open her up. So you got a little punch blade right there. Nice walk and talk on it. Get your can opener blade here, clamshell. So towards the end of the war, they came up with the safety or hawk can opener. Those came at the very end of the war. So some were issued, but most of them are some type of old style can opener. They all had your screwdriver cap lifter right there. And spear point, most of them were spear point. Some you'll see actually had sheep's foot blades on them. So that's pretty interesting. These knives were wartime issue. There were 16 million that served in World War II. The Army, I think, had about 11,200,000. The Navy had about 4.2 million, and the Marine Corps had 660,000. And Camillus made 3.2 million of these knives for the United States Army. They made 1.7 million of these knives for the Navy. So you find these, they're not rare, right? They're not even scarce. You can find these on any given day on eBay. You can find them at flea markets, in antique stores. They're pretty easy to find. A lot of people want to go with one like this because it has a shield. And there's always questions, how do I know this was made during, issued into the Army? So another thing about these is a large number of them, where you see the tank stamp here, just had made in America. And so those are military issue. I actually have one of them. Again, I'm not going to go down that hole. I don't want to get into talking about these until I do a video that's comprehensive on them. But yeah, you can be sure if it's got a shield on it with USA, USMC, Navy on it, USN, United States Navy, pardon me, they all, if it has a shield, it's definitely a wartime issue. And we'll talk about, when I do that video on all-inclusive video on these engineer knives, we'll talk about how you can tell that they're military issue or not. So pretty nice knife, really good shape. There's no step in here. these knives, they made a lot of them. So, the war officially started December 1941. They didn't really start producing these knives for the military to 1942. By 1945, it was over. And so they made a lot of these knives. Camillus alone made 4.9 million of these knives in 4 years. So that's an incredible amount of production. Because that, the early ones that you see, some of the early ones you'll see have brass, so they're just knives they had and shoved them out the door to the military. And they're the better made. So you'll see ones that are better made. This one's okay. It's not horrible. There is, like, it's really tight on the can opener here. It's not very smooth there. And that's understandable because, they're producing 1 million of these a year alone. And then you have all the other companies making these too. And so they were just trying to make these as fast as they could. They're not the highest quality, but you can find ones that'll really surprise you. And this one here is just, it's not bad. It's just not really finely made knife. Really cool though. These are really cool. Just nice to have that piece of history. Some guy in the army was carrying this, where? Was he in Italy, Africa, Normandy? Um, you know, pretty amazing. What else we want to say about these? I think I covered about everything that I wanted to cover on these. Yeah, I did. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. I hope you really enjoyed this knife. It's really in good shape, for the age of this knife. And remember, Knife Anonymous. If you do get in trouble, you can't control watching the show or buying knives. Maybe you should look into that. As far as me, I'm just going to waller in my addiction and buy as many knives as I can. Have a great day.